We will now call to order City of Avon Park budget hearing for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Budget workshop.
Budget workshop.
You can't actually take any action today.
Right.
Morning, Mark. Fresh
Mark.
coffee in the back there.
Brought you a sandwich, too.
Take it away when you're ready, guys.
All right.
Someone took Maria's calculator
Seriously?
as a heart attack.
Mine has my name on it too.
She sure did.
Wow.
That's okay. I'll just borrow this one.
You know, we just,
It's all right.
Check that drawer.
No?
We did. I don't care. I mean,
I know, but
You got one?
yeah, I got Jerry's.
All right. Well, that's probably it, because we didn't give Jerry one.
No, but no, mine had my name on it. I put it down. Yeah.
Ah.
There you go. Happy
putting
Saturday.
your
Yeah.
name on it.
It was
We
the
got some honest
professor in the
people there.
library with the candlestick.
Okay, on this budget workshop, we're not totally complete with this, and Ricky can explain a lot of this to you. So I'm going to turn it over to our budget director, Rick Helms.
Good morning, council members.
Good morning.
The detail tab that you have on the folder in front of you, let me give a little bit of an explanation about that. When there is detailed information or explanatory information to go with an account, you're going to have that account, and then directly below that you will have some detailed information. And to give you an example of that, if you look on page 2 of 41 on the detail under the city manager cost center, and this is just, I'm not totally jumping to that cost center yet, but I just wanted to explain that. You'll see the line item say for regular salaries and wages. Directly underneath that, you will see some different lines there that explain what is contained within that particular line item. One of them is the existing staff that is there already, and the other is things that will impact that. If you look over at the columns on the far right, I've got a base budget and an increment, and then the total of those two columns together. And so anything that would be an increment over what the base budget is would go in the column for increment. And that's what you see there on that particular one. Now, some of the other cost centers that we will address today have significantly more detailed line items. Some of them don't have a lot. I wouldn't want to attach a whole lot of significance to the fact that they don't have a whole lot of detail there. Just the fact that their budget is pretty much standard as compared to last year, and the base budget is basically very similar to what when I say last year, the current year budget is, because we are talking about next year's budget. So that gives you an explanation of the information as we're going through.
Is the base budget going to be, is it already, on some of them, it looks like they've been increased on some base budgets. So, but it's not in as the recommended. Is the base because it's unnegotiable or not negotiable?
All of it is negotiable for council.
Okay. No, I'm just asking because when we get there, we'll get there, but there's a base budget that has a 3% increase in it already, but it's not in the recommended increment column.
how did you come up to the base budget?
In speaking with the different department heads and also looking at what the expenditures have been for the current year. And I think that's what we'll find out on a lot of those, is that the expenses or the costs during the current year exceeded what the budget
Original
was for
budget.
the previous year. So projecting on the next year, we want to be able to meet those costs as opposed to having to deal with being under budgeted in a particular line item.
Okay, that
Under the-
answered my question.
One of the items on there where it has IT specialists, I assume that's
That's a
service,
position.
that's not in-house, right?
That would be a new position,
In-house.
in-house,
Oh,
not a contract position.
very good. Okay.
And we'll address each position as we go through the cost centers
Okay.
as to what is anticipated, that particular cost center, what we're trying to do with that particular cost center. Probably need to address a couple of elephants in the room on items that are not contained in here yet, and that being the operative word, yet. Revenues, I am trying to finalize those revenues. I want to make sure that I've got a good feeling and a good basis for those revenue amounts for each of the individual funds before I put that in the book and provide that to you, and certainly it gets broadcast out. So I'm in the process of working on that. Another example of that is we fully anticipated we would have the CIP plan as a part of this. And when we talk about the five-year CIP plan, there are 5 years worth of projects that are in there. But the very first year of that CIP plan has to be a part of your budget for next year. So that is not complete. That is a function of workload and some other factors that have impacted certainly Ron out at Public Works, as well as myself, and being able to take those projects and break them down into the individual line items that they need to go into in the budget. And on top of that, having a good feel for the offsetting revenues that have been applied for in the form of grants and other things as well, so that we show the proper impact on the fund from a basis of how much of the fund balance would be needed from that fund to complete those projects in next year. So that's the reason that you do not see the CIP information. Ron and I both are going to be working very hard, and I imagine that will be the major topic of discussion next week on our workshop.
The bulk of the CIP is going to be in Public Works.
Yes, absolutely.
Ricky, in the past, the council had a listing of, for example, public input from repairs to sidewalks or potholes or whatnot, but typically it had to do with, school walkways and things like that. Are we going to have an opportunity to look at that list prior to it? I mean, is there a list of needs in terms of sidewalk repairs and things? I mean, I know several just off the top of my head.
Certainly, those can be included. If I remember correctly, there is a line item in the streets budget for sidewalks. It's either streets or the CIP 1, but I remember seeing that for sidewalks. If it isn't in the infrastructure fund, it cannot be repairs to sidewalks. It has to be a new sidewalk. If it is in the streets cost center, then it can be repairs to sidewalks. And that just goes to the definitions of the use of the funds and the, I wanted to say Auditor General, but it's not the Auditor General, it's the Attorney General opinions that have been handed down as to allowable uses of infrastructure dollars. And that seems like it's splitting hairs, but that's what they do in the Attorney General's office. So,
Ricky, adding to that, there was a list of new sidewalks that I think that was supposed to come up in the second year CIP, second or the third year CIP. And one of those new sidewalks consisted of, on Cornell Drive, from Ridgedale Apartments all the way down to Memorial. So is that going to be in the CIP?
if it was in the CIP for the current year and it
The
was
next
scheduled
year.
for next year,
Yeah.
then it should roll
Okay.
forward into the budget that will be considered and adopted for fiscal year 1920.
I have
So
one question.
that's with the CIP, each year you roll
Over.
that new year into what you're adopting for that particular year.
Okay.
And then you add that fifth year out at the
For
end.
new projects.
So it's basically a rolling 5-year CIP plan.
Are we also going to have a line item that we're going to professionally trim a lot of trees and bushes on the mall, as well as possible removal of some that really don't belong?
I would
We can.
defer to the city
Okay.
manager on that.
All right,
Um,
and improvements.
And also added to that, could we not just, David, could you just include the entire incorporation of the city limits of Avon Park? Because on the south side, there are trees that need to be trimmed, there are some need to be taken down, that, I'm talking about the core areas.
Sure.
The main areas.
That's an ambitious project to try to get an estimate on unless we've already got something that's maybe out there now that they
Okay.
had a plan. I don't know if it was on the previous CIP or not, but
I don't remember it being there. Do you
No.
guys?
It wouldn't have been, no.
Well, that would be also involve having to somehow flag the trees that need to be
Right.
taken out, as well as those that need to be trimmed, and then having a company to give you cost estimates on coming in and doing that work.
I have one comment too, David. It appears as the mall is getting improved care lately, and we changed the process to get it better trimmed and mowed than in the past.
we're just trying to stay ahead of the rain right now.
Okay, because it does look better.
Thank you.
Seems like there was one other thing. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is the CRA budgets. I do need to work on those some more, specifically addressing the revenue side compared to what is contained in the expense side of the budgets for those 3 different CRAs. So I will be working on that, and again, it's ambitious, but I anticipate being able to have that information for the workshop next Saturday.
I think the CRA also, there was a decision at the last, which meeting was it? At the last meeting to have the CRA advisory board together with the regular CRA board at the next meeting? right?
Correct.
We were just
Right.
inviting
On the
them to
26th.
They were
meeting.
invited,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's a I mean, they've been notified as a public meeting as well. I know that we're not going over budget with them, but that would be a good time to give them instructions to go ahead and start working on it. Maybe they'll have to have a meeting of their own. I know that the advisory boards for the last 5 years have not had a sit-down to do their budgets. It's just been rubber stamped by admin. So I know that they want to have their hands in it this time for sure. So you might have to meet with them, Ricky. Just saying.
I understand that, and it would be a good meeting. I do have concerns specifically about the Main Street CRA because of the status of that particular fund. There will be some significant reimbursements, I believe, coming from insurance that's going to help out with that because of significant outlays of funds for repairs after the hurricanes. And
To the
some
Brickell
of-
building?
Some, to the Brickell building,
Uh-huh.
correct.
Because that wasn't
And
included.
there were significant amounts of money that were paid out for repairs, and some of those insurance claims still have not been settled as I understand them.
That is
But-
correct.
But there should be a significant amount of money coming back there, but even that, I don't think will totally make that fund whole, and we need to look at restricting or not planning for as much expenditures on that fund till that fund is completely whole again. So that's
Well, they're going
that's
to be in
something I'll
debt
be
for a long,
discussing
long
with them.
time. I mean, you know, they didn't buy the Brickell building, it was forced upon them to be purchased. So, you know, their plans have minimized dramatically due to that purchase. You know, and I brought this up at some meeting beforehand, you know, I would love to see that, you know, the building be given
Yep.
back to the city. I mean,
Well,
they're not going to have the money to fix that building up.
I also noticed that we also talked about the possibility of selling that building.
Right.
And I also heard that the building right across the street, which is, well, I'll call it the Big Red Building, the old bank, that there was a buyer interested in that building. And so that's progress to get, if they got a buyer for that building, that may increase the buyer opportunity for somebody on the Brickell Building too, to build up Main Street at the same time. So that's all positive news.
There's been interest in people. I've gotten several calls from an agency in Orlando. I gave them your number about the Brickell Building, and they wanted to know if there was going to be a bid process or someone was going to just offer out for it.
Right.
I don't know if they.
Where we are on that is to finalizing the numbers of what we've actually got into it, which is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $450,000, I think, including the cost and the repairs. Once we get the insurance adjustment out of that, then we can drop off over $100,000 off of that, and then let y'all decide what you want me to do with it, once we get to that point where we know what our actual dollars are.
So let me just get this, okay, so you have insurance money that's coming.
Yes.
Still, right? And I think, what is it, like a $35,000 annual payment from the CRA to the city? I think that was set up,
Yeah,
right?
somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Don't ask for that to be forgiven.
It never happened. You know, it has to be a decision that council makes, but
Yeah.
that's just never happened. So, you know, if it ever gets forgiven, then that would be the additional 35 back into the
Yeah.
planning programs for the advisory board. But, I mean, I would like to see that, and I would like council at some point to decide if that's where we're gonna go with that. If not, then it's gonna limit the need for them to meet, because if they're not gonna have much money, and there's just no sense in, trying to project any big projects. But if that is feasible, I know we've talked about it, if it could be, I mean, there's even an interest rate on it. Why is a CRA
Yeah.
paying an interest rate?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me at all.
You
I
know?
thought we decided up here, it didn't pass.
We just decided to discuss it in the future. We didn't
Oh,
actually do
okay.
anything. No.
My
Well,
mind, it was gone.
I could provide some information on that. Whenever there is a loan from one fund to another, it needs to be what is referred to as an arm's length transaction. And as part of that transaction, the fund that is loaning the money needs to be able to recover, according to accounting rules and guidelines, be able to recover the interest that fund would have earned on that money had it been on deposit within that fund as opposed to loan to the other fund. So that's why there needs to be an interest rate, but not an interest rate at which one fund makes money off of the other fund, that it is just reimbursed for the interest earnings that it would have received had the money been on deposit with, whether it was on a CD or whether it was with the SBA or whether it was Florida League of Cities, whatever investment vehicle was being used, and what your rate of return on that is. And normally that is done on a floating interest rate because those rates vary from not necessarily month to month, but certainly quarter to quarter. So that's the reason that there would be an interest rate attached to a loan from one fund to another fund.
Well, let me ask you this, if we sell the Brickell Building, it's basically gonna be sold by the city, so should we just go ahead and move that back to the city now? Because we're eventually the ones gonna be selling it, why would we have them carrying a loan on it? Doesn't make sense for them to keep that.
No, I mean, the building was purchased originally for housing, for a housing thing. And then it came back that you couldn't use those dollars for housing, so then it had to be placed upon the CRA to do that all of a sudden, here you go, here's your $400,000 building, now you have to pay for it. Anyway, if it could go back to the city at this point, if the CRA could donate it back, that would be great. I mean, I'm just looking at the money that the CRA would have ended up with, right? That otherwise, that money would have gone to the entire city.
Right.
right, without the CRA. So, I mean, if this is something we can place on the agenda in the future for decision, I think that would be helpful, and we
Yep.
can discuss it then. But that would be an extra $400,000 in this budget that would have to be adjusted somewhere in here in order for you'd be getting money from the insurance company, so it wouldn't be such a big loss.
Right.
But-
But we can't really make those decisions until we get the insurance money, and
Right.
until we have a
Right,
council meeting,
right,
so.
right. That's why I'm
we-
saying, when we get all that info, it would be helpful, because, I mean, I'd like to transfer that out.
Right. And even if we have a set budget and those actions take place, we can still
Adjust
amend
it.
that later, so.
Well, now that we've addressed all of the preliminary information.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally useless. Uh-huh.
Maybe
Can't
now
imagine
we
what
can
the
move
details
forward
gonna be
into
like.
talking about individual cost centers. The first cost center, and we'll go by funds, and that's the way it's arranged. All of the cost centers in the general fund are up first, and then we move right down the line to the other funds.
You're going to the detail right now?
To the detail portion, this would be page 1 there. With this is the council's cost center. There are minimal expenses associated with this, specifically for the salaries. In addition to that, there are historically other expenses that are associated with this as well. The variable that is in here, any special meeting, according to your code, council receives, I believe it's $25 for any special meetings that are scheduled above and beyond what your normal meeting schedule is. So that is the one variable that is contained in there, and there's been an estimate that's been made of that. Hopefully, what's the estimate is something that will hold up, and there won't need to be a significant number of special meetings that are set up. But anyway, that is basically the city council budget. Are there any questions that council has on the budget that basically provides funding for council?
I do have a question. Is there a potential for an increase for council in this category? And I go back, I've spoken to David about this several times, and he gave us some info on it a couple of months ago. At one point in history, the council received insurance. And many of those many of the council didn't opt for it because A, they either worked somewhere and it was provided to them, or B, they, I guess, were on Social Security or something. But I personally do not need insurance, so I wouldn't be seeking that. But my question is, would there be parameters here to get an increase to council? I think that I, at least, have spent a lot of time on this, but the city council itself has not seen an increase in its contribution to them, I don't think, in 20 years.
Probably more,
Yeah.
because I've been here for 20 years.
Yeah, so in the old days, when they used to get insurance, and in those insurance used to be, what, $150 a month,
Yeah.
right? That went away, and then they ended up getting a stipend, and the stipend has been consistent since then, and it's still less than what an insurance payment would have been, or a health insurance. So, me personally, I know that per the charter, the mayor makes 25% more than the rest of us, but I would like to see an option in there so that council can either get the revenue based off of what you guys currently pay on insurance and let that be the payment to the council with an extra 25% to him, or kind of factor something in there to where the dollar value is equivalent to that, so that if you get new council, they can opt for A or B.
Certainly, if that's a decision that's made by council, the budget can be adjusted accordingly.
All right.
We can plug some figures in there for next week.
And if you would like that done for planning purposes,
Well, yeah.
going in there, we can make that adjustment and have it a part of the discussion for next Saturday.
And I also know that it used to be where the council would go to Florida League of Cities dinners and stuff. I mean, you know, I don't know if anyone goes. There was just a conference last week,
Exactly.
and we all missed it. I
I
mean,
went.
you went? So I didn't even know about it. So,
Let me just interrupt you a minute, Maria. I went to the conference, but it was just this, it was Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the 14th, 15th, and 16th. And I didn't know that I was the liaison for the city of Avon Park until I got there. I went under my job Heartland Coalition for the Homeless. I didn't attend the full conference. I attended the first day because I didn't know if we had paid for the full conference. So I went there for the one day because it was concerning the homeless, rethinking homelessness in our counties and other counties, and it was a very good conference, very good, the part that I attended. So, and that was going to be my question too, because I didn't see anything in here, whereas if it was identified about the Ridge League of Cities membership fee and attending the meetings and all.
Well, I have a funny story. I got a call from Carol Westmoreland a couple of weeks ago, and she invited me to sit at her table at the conference. And I thought she meant the CRA conference that's going to be in October, and I said, sure, I'll be there. I got emails the day before yesterday, we're waiting for you, where are you? And I'm like, what are you talking? Anyway, it was at the Florida League of Cities. I thought she meant the CRA one.
Yeah.
But that's another expense for later on in the CRA budget. But yeah, I mean, the FLC, there's also another one that new council members go to. It's what? Is it City Council 101? You go to school? Is that, which one is that one? Is that the Florida League of Cities?
Yes.
It must be.
You went to that one.
I did.
You didn't go?
Yeah, when you first came on.
I don't remember.
It's the IMO class.
IMO.
Where was it at?
Oh, I don't remember where it was, but I just remember when you first came on the council, you went. I don't know if you went or not, and I went as well. And there's also an advanced class you could attend also.
I remember they had one class here, but I don't remember the other one.
That was for Sunshine.
As a Sunshine
Yeah.
Ethics, yes.
But things like that should be included. And I got notified about the conference from Leo Sauls. Leo of the county, what's his name, Leo?
Leah Sauls.
Leo Sauls through the county.
Okay.
I will mention that there is some money that is budgeted under travel and per diem, but I do not see a corresponding amount that is budgeted under or for the registration fees. Because you have two items. You have, number one, cost of actually going and staying at the conference.
Mm-hmm.
Then you also have a separate registration fee to register for the conference. So there is some money for travel and per diem. Whether or not that's enough, that's a question. I don't know whether council wants for each council member to be able to attend, or whether a group of council members to attend, just whatever. If you want me to look at what the costs are for all council members to attend, I can certainly run those calculations and plug those numbers in for next year.
I mean, the likelihood of all council members,
Pretty slim.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
realistically, you wouldn't think more than about one per conference is actually going to attend.
But if you have new council members, we don't know that we're gonna, well, I don't know the other, I don't know.
I think you should allow for at least
Yeah.
one or two, because that would be, it was like the last conference that, it was a registration fee, I think it was like $455 for the registration fee, and then you had the hotel was a discounted rate, but it still costs.
Yeah.
So if you just put in the budget for one or two people to go, and then the council up here can decide.
Right.
Normally, it's not going to be more than one or two people going.
Okay.
Yeah, I always go to the two schools for FPPTA, and pretty much not only do I miss work for 4 days, that's twice a year. It's kind of difficult for me to probably attend another one, so more than likely I would not attend another one unless retirement comes soon. But I would be happy to, if we had one or two positions, to pass that to somebody else that would like to go to other schools or classes or conferences.
Yeah, just plan for two and let's keep moving.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay?
That was page 1 of 41, so keep that in mind.
We're not going to go through all of them today, probably.
Okay.
Okay, unless there's any other questions, we'll move on to the city manager cost center, and that begins on page 2 of 41.
Okay?
The cost center reflects two different salary line items there, executive salaries and regular salaries. I noticed in going through the budget that executive salaries seem to be used for not just the very senior members of the organization, which would be council and the city manager, but it's also used for individual department heads. That's something that I am not familiar with. Normally, all salaries except for the very senior staff members are budgeted under regular salaries and wages, as opposed to budgeting each of your department heads under executive salaries. So if you see a variance between what is shown for executive salaries for next year compared to this year, it's because I have taken that liberty of moving salaries down to regular salaries, as opposed to all of it being paid, or more of it being paid under executive salaries. You'll see that in some of the other cost centers as we go through as well. And that's all the way down through fire and the code enforcement, out to public works, all of that. You'll see that.
So what you're
that
saying
change.
on this right here, Rick, is that city manager, only executive salary only consists of just the city manager, nobody else
That's
is
correct.
in there? Okay, and it's through that way through the whole budget?
Yep.
Okay.
The regular salaries and wages, you'll see a line there for the existing staff that is there. You'll also see a line that is there for the city clerk position. With the resignation that occurred with the individual that was performing city clerk duties, that has necessitated splitting out those duties. And now there is I believe just started a city clerk. So there is a city clerk that is on staff. And so that is the budget for that city clerk position.
But
And-
wait, if they just started, then why is it recommended? Wouldn't that be in current? Wouldn't that be part of the base?
When I was putting this together, that person had not come on board. So I was looking at, for next fiscal year. That person has now been hired, so yes, you are correct, that could be moved to existing staff.
So we have a city clerk that qualified under the recommendations of, I think it was a BA degree, 5 years experience, so on and so forth. Okay.
And a master certified municipal city clerk.
That is a significant accomplishment in itself, becoming a master certified city
Took
clerk.
11 years to get that designation.
Under executive salary for the city manager, it doesn't show there's any room for increase. I would think that maybe at least within the year, something would be considered. If that's something we could take out of a different location if it's decided by council in the future.
Well, that's one of the things that that I will be proposing as part of the changes that you'll see next week. My recommendation is that there be a reserve amount that is budgeted in the general fund to be able to address things that were not known at the time the budget was adopted, and council feels like they need to be addressed and funded. Looking through the budget that was adopted for this current fiscal year, there was not a reserve for contingencies account in the general fund.
I thought we had a $1.3 million surplus in payroll.
Mhm.
Fund
That
balance.
is across all funds.
So I mean, if money would have to have been needed, then it would have come out of that.
Right.
So does that also include in that one, is that surplus going to remain a surplus next year?
Well, you had a number of positions during the year that were not
Backfield.
filled. So you had lapse money that was generated from positions not filled.
Mhm.
A lot of those positions have been filled. They're
But not
still in the
$1.3
process
million
of being
dollars.
Better
filled.
not be.
Huh? Yeah.
And they're still in the process of
Yeah.
being filled.
So I know that I didn't see it in here, the employee buyback, is that part of the reserve in the general fund revenue, or is that a reserve in payroll? Or was it even allocated?
It's not currently allocated in the budget. If that is a program the council wants to continue into next fiscal year, then I will adjust the budget accordingly.
I think in the employee policy, it states in there that if there's money there, then you can use it, but it's typically not budgeted because you don't know who's going to participate.
You talking about
That's
to buy back some of their unused
Yeah.
annual leave?
Yeah. They buy back the sick at half, and then they buy back the vacation at full, but they have to remain with, I don't know how many hours, 40 or 80 hours in their bank before they can buy anything back. And it's typically done Black
Christmas.
Friday, actually November,
Yeah.
for those that shop. Anyway, I didn't know if that was still available.
I did not see a particular line item in this
Okay.
current year budget for that, so that must have been addressed through lapse funds that were
Yeah.
generated during the year. And with some of the cost centers that utilize overtime, not all of the overtime money is used. So that may also be an area where those funds were available
Okay.
in prior years.
So when you say you want to look at a reserve in the general fund for raises,
Well, a reserve for contingencies would be for anything that comes up out of the ordinary. And when I say anything, that includes tropical storms
Emergency issues.
and emergency assistance related to that. And anytime that you have a disaster like that, you always get a promise from FEMA that, reimbursements are going to occur much more rapidly than they have in the past. We have new systems in place, yada, yada, yada.
Takes years.
It
Yep.
always, I understand this, it always takes a minimum of 2 years before you get your money back that you expend. They will
Also-
tell you otherwise. My experience in 38 years working in government, it has never changed.
Also, earlier this year, or not too long ago back, we actually put a freeze on salaries. We calculated whether we ever removed that freeze or not.
That was a freeze on raises.
On wages, yes. So there may be a time where we,
I think when the budget kicks in, because we're only October, we're 2 months away.
That was the point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Until the,
just to get us to
Yeah.
there.
Fiscal year, yeah.
Okay. That's fine. We can change it as we go. Perfect.
Okay, the other position.
Excuse
that
me,
you
let me just ask one other question while we're still on the city manager. Did I hear you say the IT specialist is now a new position?
That is a new position that is being requested for next year.
So that means we won't be using our
Consultant.
consultant for IT now? If this
It's a
goes through?
possibility.
Okay.
I've got to look at a lot of the things that he does and what he actually,
Okay,
there's a license on some of the things that he does for us. And I'm not sure if, for instance, I'm not sure if he owns our phone system or not.
you gotta find that out, because
I-
when
that-
I
I've-
moved from in my job, when I moved from one agency to another one, and it was a disaster.
Mhm.
Because we didn't own our IT system, we didn't own a whole lot of the stuff, so we lost it. So you gotta make sure of that.
The primary reason I'm looking at this is not because I'm dissatisfied with with the service that he provides us. I would like a little bit more immediate response than what we've been getting on some things. And I believe if we have somebody on staff that can take care of that, who is immediately available when a system goes down or anything like that, instead of trying to find him and get him to respond to us, because sometimes there's quite a time lag there.
A lot of time he's out of the country. Also, I am a little dissatisfied, honestly, because I'm continuing to get spam emails. I got one this past week that said my Amazon account had been hacked into. I don't think I have an Amazon account with the city. I've had several other emails like that about other types of accounts that obviously I don't have with the city. So I noticed up until, say, this year, his Exchange Defender seemed to cut out all spam. It doesn't seem to be doing it now, for whatever reason. Maybe he needs to upgrade it, but when you get what appears to be possibly a personal email attack on you on your city email, there's something not right there.
Agreed.
And unfortunately, I do have some of those accounts, but it has nothing to do with the city, and they are actually were spam. So I just, that's just way too scary that somebody's getting into our system and hacking us, that if they can hack into the city, then may not hit me personally, but it could hurt the city really bad.
Well, David, if you end up hiring somebody, I mean, would they be able to do the public records as well? Because, I mean, does the city still have that server thing where you can just go in and do a word search rather than having to ask individual employees to look for things?
Yes.
You know, yeah. So, I mean, that person hopefully would be able to do that as well. I
Our
mean, that
new-
would take a big chunk out of not having to come up with that data if
Yes.
someone can do that on, you know, on their own.
Our new city clerk is actually Florida Records Specialist certified in that as well. So, yeah, we're going to be doing some changes on that, and hopefully we can get our website back to being completely ADA compliant and start televising the meetings again. Those are all things that are yet to be seen.
Does
Right.
he or she have a name?
Her name is Kimberly Gay,
G-A-Y-E?
G-A-Y.
Okay.
She goes
That's
by Kim.
the city clerk
Mhm.
is Kimberly Gay.
She starts this Friday.
Was she the one that yes and then no and then yes?
Okay, any other questions on that section?
Move along, Mayor.
Take us
Move
away.
along.
Let me mention one additional thing, because I don't know whether it has jumped off of the page at you yet, but it will at some point. Even though the salary amounts appear to be higher combined between those two line items, you need to understand that this budget is put together eliminating those splits that have happened in the past, where salaries have been split between 4 and 5 different cost centers across the entire budget. Now, one of the things you'll see later in one of the cost centers is a request for recovery of those costs by doing a study that is a fact-based study on the services that are provided by the general fund to other funds, and is something that will hold up under scrutiny of auditors or litigation. So I'll be addressing that as we come to that as well. So,
Like today? You're going to address that today?
yes, ma'am. It's just a couple more cost centers down. It is something that is done routinely by cities and counties across the state of Florida. It is something that needs to be done, because instead of just guessing how much service is provided from one fund to another, you know exactly how much is provided from one to the other.
So going back on that, for example, when you have these costs for these individuals, is that the max, or do you foresee giving them a raise after 6 months? I mean, is that budgeted in here as well?
Not
You
to my
mean if it
knowledge.
goes up?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you have a budget, a recommended increment, IT specialist 55, city clerk 64. Is that going to be what it's going to be and end of story? Or is there going to be a, going into the reserve of the general fund for contingencies for an increase there? Or is that something that we don't have any knowledge of or don't need to have any knowledge of?
I do not have any increases programmed into the budget for either of those two positions. So,
You don't,
So,
but does
after-
David?
No.
Okay.
But what?
Because I know there's the high and the
Now-
low,
Yeah.
right?
You-
So, I mean, I don't know where these positions are in terms of the high and the low.
Did you budget in the high side?
I budgeted on the maximum salary.
So then there's room.
What's the use for the study?
Was that your question?
There was
too?
another point that I needed to make, and hopefully I will remember it.
Can you speak up? I'm not. You're mumbling, and I can't hear what you're saying.
There was another point that I was going to make, and I
Okay.
hope I can remember it before we move on to the next one.
I'm sorry,
Um,
I'm sorry.
It'll come to me. It'll come
Okay.
back around again. Any questions related to the operating expenses for the city manager's office?
I had one on the city clerk position. I don't know if it's a typo, but you have a $15,000 retirement contribution. Is that a typo? IT specialist 4,000 and the city clerk position is at 15,574.
I will check that, but the city clerk position is classified as senior management.
So that's
it
a
is-
25%?
So it is, yes.
I disagree with that. I would never hire someone at a 25% rate of contribution, because what that's going to do is every other executive is going to want a 25% contribution as well, and I think we're setting a precedence there.
There is a limited number of senior management class positions that you can have.
This is the only one.
No, there's several that have been classified as.
And who
senior
are they?
management.
We have employees that have been classified at 25%?
Finance is classified as senior management, finance director. Mine is, city clerk is, and I believe HR is, I believe.
Really? And you told me a month ago that you had not done that. We're just throwing that money out there. I'm just in disbelief of that. I'm sorry that I'm bringing it up here, but we have never had a 25% rate of retirement for anybody, and now we're doing that? Seriously?
I don't.
Who made that decision?
I'm going by what I got.
David, that has never been done before. I asked you that, and you said it wasn't done and that you had not done that. I specifically asked, and you said that you were all still at 3%. So, you know, to have,
Okay.
anyway, you guys do what you want, but I will not approve a budget with a 25% for anybody, because that is just really, really, really reaching it. That's for
It seems excessive to me.
hugely excessive. That's more than our fire department. $15,000? Okay.
Who sets what is considered executive management and what isn't?
The state does, and historically, we've had a 3% for everybody in the past, and
So
it's.
does what I'm asking is, does the state dictate that the city clerk, city manager?
No, it's a
Or-
choice made. It's a choice made by, I don't know. This is a, I would call it a novel approach to paying people more. That's all it is.
The question is, do we have a choice as to who
Yes,
gets
we do.
classified? Okay.
The budget decides.
Can you tell me who the senior management positions are again? You say human resource director and,
Mine,
yeah.
finance director, city clerk. Might be our infrastructure director also. And possibly HR, but I'll have to check into this. I'm not sure, actually.
Okay.
Okay. Obviously, you'll send us an email on that.
Okay.
If you
Is the
would like-
administrative assistant in there as well?
No.
I can look down my list here that I have
Hmm.
for the staff positions and tell you the ones that I'm showing. City manager,
I don't see reasons for a raise when you have a 25%. That's all I'm saying. It's ridiculous. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
So basically what that's saying is every 4 years, you're putting in the bank a year's salary for retirement?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Well, you need to understand too that not all of that 25% goes to the employee.
In
There
FRS,
is a
it doesn't.
substantial overhead cost with the state of Florida related to senior management class. And I can go through and get that number for you, but my recollection is that it's only about, the city only puts in, I want to say it's somewhere around, or the employee only benefits somewhere around 8%, and the other goes to the state for managing the funds. And addressing insufficient funding for that particular class in prior years.
So let me ask you, I know that elected officials also qualify for executive too, right? How come we weren't thought about that? Executive positions, we are as well, right? A question for you, in terms of that, what was my
Executive-
question going to be?
Executive positions are.
David, let me just get this straight. How is a manager an executive position? I thought only directors were.
Okay, you're referring to HR.
Yes,
I have classified her as HR director.
okay. But you hired her as manager, you gave her the $12,000 raise within 2 months, and she was director all of a sudden as well? And then she became executive as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this question then, Ricky. What did the previous staff people get in the previous 2 years as far as executive retirement plans?
We'd have to go back and look at on that. I'm sure we don't have that right
Well,
now.
It was the lowest rate of FRS.
I mean, I would think that if the
Senior management was the lowest rate?
Absolutely.
if the two previous city managers' salary was at 130,000, I believe, then I'd like to know what their retirement.
One of them was not in FRS, was ineligible, but.
I guarantee it wasn't 1.6. That's
It
the
was
lowest
3.
rate.
I think it was 3%.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I mean, this right here is the absolute highest that the state offers. Someone did some research, obviously, on this, and they saw that this was going to be something that they could capture. I am wholly, wholly against it, only because we already overpay these positions as they are. And I just think it's abuse of city tax dollars. No one is that good. I'm sorry.
You should understand, though, that the amount that actually goes towards the retirement, you mentioned 1.3% for regular status.
What's the vesting period on this?
The-
Do you know?
The vesting period, if you are in pensions program, it's 8 years, I believe.
And for
No,
executive?
no.
Executive is immediate, is it not?
No, it's 1 year.
1 year.
Mm.
Okay, so for regular employees, it's 8 years. For executive, it's 1 year.
If you're on the investment side, you vest at 1 year. If you're on the pension side, it's 8 years.
So David, you up here on the recommended increment, it doesn't show an executive amount, but it does show for this executive city clerk position. How come it's not up there on yours, and you said that you do get it?
I can just tell you from my experience, even, with the county, that senior management class was not, their salaries were not classified under executive salaries. They were classified under regular salaries.
I don't know what that means.
On your line items that you see there,
What, are you saying that you're following what the county does?
that's been my experience at the county level and also in speaking with other cities as well.
So what is the city manager's increment? It's listed as a 0 right now. If you're saying that retirement contributions for city clerk is 15,000, what's the contribution for city manager?
37,603. It's
Where's
not.
that?
It's not as an increment. It's just simply as a base, right next to it.
So your retirement contributions, David, is 20,260.
That's what you're paying. That's not what I'm getting.
No, that's your retirement contribution.
That's what you're paying. That's not what I'm getting. I just got a statement from them the other day.
So
I'm
when
getting-
you
I'm
were
getting
hired,
3%.
at 90,000, who made the decision to give you that to enter that into there? Are you getting paid any of that right now?
No,
Are you in the executive level right now?
I am on the executive side, yes.
Okay, so what is that right now? We don't have that in this budget, obviously, but at what point, who made the decision to give you that executive rate?
Not me.
You didn't?
No, ma'am.
Who made the decision? Someone had to sign off on it.
Y'all hired me at $90,000 a year.
Exactly.
Somebody at
At City Hall?
at City Hall.
You're
but
telling me that you don't know who gave you a 25% rate? Who gave them the 25% rate?
I was put in at what the previous city manager was put in at for executive level retirement. And I don't know who did that. I'm gonna say it was probably Danielle or the three that you had in charge there.
Well, I mean, we can see if the previous city manager was getting the same 25%. That should be on record, right?
Yeah, but see, the
Yes.
thing about it is that you guys would never have known because that doesn't come to you. And if it was inserted while in the middle of the year when June was hired, then you wouldn't know that.
But was it there whenever Julian was there?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah. So somewhere along the lines, employees just decided that they needed the executive rate. So if David doesn't know, but yet these other people are in there,
Why wouldn't you pay the executive rate?
because it's exorbitant. Because this is Avon Park. Because you wanted a raise in taxes. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, here you're hiring these people at the super highest wages in all of Central Florida, and you're giving them a 25%. You know, are we here to pay taxes to hire people, or are we here to pay taxes to provide a service to the community? I just think it's excessive. That's just
I
me.
didn't look at it like that,
Well,
but now you brought it up, it's something.
I-
somewhere.
I think it's excessive.
I
You know,
I am also classified as senior management, so you're
Well, I
making
do
that
know,
same
I mean, I've been
statement
to City
relative to
Hall
my
on several
position.
occasions, and you've talked about it, and you've talked about this, how you can get this, and how you can get that, and how you can do this, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, when are you gonna talk about how you can do things for the community rather than for yourself? I don't see Avon Park as a place to come to work so that you can make a lot of money and then leave. I just don't see that. This is more than the private sector, and you know, and with a pension to boot. So I don't know that a 25% is, I'm just amazed. I'm just amazed. I see it as a small town, and we're still small. Why are we doing this?
No, I would just like to see what the rates were in the past. For the past 2
agree.
years.
I would agree.
Is there a way to do that for us?
Yes.
But I will remind you that I did ask you specifically, David, a month ago, and you told me no one was doing it, and now you're telling me they are, so.
I don't remember that conversation, Maria.
Absolutely had that
There is no
conversation.
way in the world that I can remember every single conversation that I have
No,
with you.
you may not remember the conversation, but I remember what you said.
Okay, let's go forward.
You're implying again that I'm misleading you, or I'm not
Yes,
telling you.
I am implying
Well,
that.
I resent that.
I don't care.
I know you don't.
Okay.
But I absolutely
We're gonna
resent
agree
that.
to disagree here. We're gonna get the rates for what the past 2 years were paid in those top positions, the executive positions as they're referred to. That's gonna be sent to all council members as soon as it's available. And we're moving on in the budget. All right, now we're still on page 2, so let's finish up page 2.
Are there any additional questions on page 2?
I'm going to leave in protest.
Okay.
I am not going to approve this budget in the way it looks. I think it's abuse of the way that we do things. I think that you lied to me. No, I didn't think. I know you did. And I'm tired
Maria.
of that. So
Come on.
I'm just saying, no one's here. You don't have to worry about a thing. It's just us.
It would, well, it's a public
You know,
meeting.
I know, but no one's here, so you don't have to worry about my
It-
comments or anything. All I can say is, David, I'm really disappointed because you told me specifically that that was not being done. Now it is being done.
I'm sure you took it
So-
out of context.
Oh, no, I didn't. How
I'm
can
sure
I
you
take
did.
out of context? Is anyone making
All right.
25% was my specific
That's
question,
enough.
and you said no.
It's enough.
I don't remember that conversation.
It's always convenient.
That's
because
enough.
You don't remember a lot of things. We need some ginkgo biloba. I'm disappointed. You lied.
Can we continue without a quorum?
We have a quorum.
We have a
We do
quorum.
have a quorum,
3,
yeah.
3 out of 5.
Yeah, yeah.
And you
yeah.
can't take action anyway, it's a workshop.
Okay.
Right. All right, page 3.
On page 3, what you see there under contractual services for detail line item there, the Superion Navaline is the current accounting software that is used by the city of Avon Park. You will see the notation under multiple cost centers for amounts for this software.
Okay.
Later on, when we get down into another cost center, you'll see a recommendation that that software that we're currently using be...
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Can you back up a minute and tell me where you started at? On page 3,
Page 3,
line item.
second line item, other contractual
Okay,
services.
gotcha.
See where the line under that says Superion Navaline?
Uh-huh.
That
This is the
particular
accounting
cost center
system?
pays $4,156 a year for the use of that software.
That's the accounting software, right?
That's the accounting software. I can tell you that that software is at least 20 years old, if not more than 25 years old. It is, to give you probably a good example of what we're dealing with on it, it is very similar to a DOS-based program operating under today's computing environment. It is extremely difficult to be able to get data out of the system once it's been input. It is not user-friendly in any shape, form, or fashion. I can tell you that in trying to prepare this budget, there was some information that I needed that should have taken me less than 10 minutes to be able to get that data out and start manipulating it. I spent 4 hours getting that data out of the system.
Okay, so let me ask you this
Going screen by
question.
screen by screen and having to manually input it
Yeah,
into a spreadsheet.
we got that. So let me ask you this question. So your recommendation is that we're going to get a new software?
Yes.
Is
And
that,
that-
okay, is that what the $7,200 is for?
No,
No, what is, I don't see it in here. That's why I'm
that's
asking.
that's going to be in a subsequent cost center, and we'll address that when we get down to it.
For the system, the Navaline system is woefully inadequate. To give you an example,
I
on-
got that.
on the employee sheets that y'all had asked us to do that showed the wages from that to back, on today's systems, that's something that would take maybe 15 to 20 minutes to do.
I got it.
It took him 5 days to be able to get that stuff just into one sheet.
Yeah. Okay.
So when we go to a new system, there also will be training costs, correct?
Correct.
And where is that located in this budget? Where's the recommendation for that?
Later on.
Okay,
I've seen it
that's
later on.
fine.
whenever
I
was
can
looking
tell you
through it.
what page it is.
I haven't had time
That's
to
all
go
right.
through this. I just picked it
Yeah,
up yesterday.
me
I
too.
apologize.
When we get to it, it'll be fine with me if we wait till then.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
all right.
I'd rather have it explained as we go.
And then I agree, because I think at one of the other meetings, you did say that we needed a new accounting system, and you would be incorporating that into the budget, and that's fine. So I agree with you. We do need one. Okay.
The other operating expenses, there, I have been, a couple of additions to that. Under pre-employment, that is for anytime anyone is hired by the city, they have to undergo pre-employment health screening. And with the number of employees that are in the city manager's office, we just plugged in a minimal amount there in case there is a need to replace a position for whatever reason. Travel and per diem, there was an additional amount placed in there. I don't know that the city manager has attended, say, the city and county managers conference that is held every year. That is a valuable conference for city and county managers to go to. And I plug that additional amount in there to cover that cost should he decide to go to that.
Okay.
The other one, the funding there for training schools. There are other employees in the department that may need additional training. When you say additional training, that can involve not something as simple as keeping up with changes that happen in your particular field. And that could be city clerk, that could be your HR director, any of those positions like that. And you'll see that in the finance department as well. There's money plugged in there as well for that, because one thing that you're guaranteed is that they're going to change the rules related to accounting and finance every single year. So you've got to keep up on that. If you don't, you will find yourself in some very difficult situations. So,
Okay.
anyway, that pretty much describes the rest of the city manager cost center. Any questions related to those operating costs, or any other questions that have not been addressed?
I have the one question under operating supplies, where it showed the actual this year was $3,249. The previous was just under 2. We're budgeting 2. We're actually 2,500. Does anybody know why that was so high in 2017-18?
Have no idea.
No idea. Okay. Is $300 sufficient for uniforms for new employees?
I'm sorry?
Is $300 sufficient for new uniform supplies?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wears their own clothes and
Yeah, you're talking about just the city manager, so you're talking about the upstairs staff. They don't really have
Thank
like
you.
the
Appreciate it.
jumpsuits and stuff, you know?
Gotcha, okay, thank you. I wouldn't mind having an Avon Park shirt though. Well, I'll go without. I got my cup.
There you go.
Moving on to the finance cost center, if we're ready for that. That's page 4 of 41.
Yep.
You'll see under the regular salaries and wages account that we have the existing staff there. That is for a full-time position, and the part-time position that I am currently occupying, that is your current total staff in finance right now. To say that Danielle is performing above and beyond what is normally expected of a person in the finance area would be a gross understatement.
Okay.
Okay, how many people are in the finance department? It's just you and Danielle?
That's
it.
correct.
Okay.
And that's
And you're part-time and she's full-time?
full-time.
And in this budget, you got 2 full-time people budgeted?
Correct.
Okay.
Two
So-
full-time people, and depending at which point in time that the city manager would want to have a full-time finance director, I have included funding in there for that. So that is something that I am not capable of providing to the city under my current situation. So
Okay, I don't want to make sure I'm understanding. No matter I'm not calling a person I don't care who's holding a position, I just want to know, this department will have 3 full-time positions budgeted in this year, or 2 full-time people budgeted?
3
okay.
full-time,
That's what I need to know.
and my position as a part-time position, unless the city manager decides that he needs a full-time finance director.
New budget.
Okay. So I see the base there of 59,000, and then you have the finance director full-time in the increment of 49,000. So would
Correct.
you then be adding those two together to make a finance director? How does that work?
Well, that includes Danielle's salary as well.
I see. And she is
under existing
technically
staff.
designated at what? What is her position?
She is accounts.
Finance coordinator.
Yeah.
She's a
thank you.
finance coordinator. Okay. So then, in the new budget, the finance coordinator would become,
Still the finance coordinator.
so you're going to have a finance coordinator, a finance clerk, a finance director, and a financial analyst?
Correct.
So that's 4.
That's 3 full-time, 1 part-time.
I see.
Okay, now, say that again now. The financial analyst will be full-time,
Correct.
and the finance clerk will be full-time.
Correct.
The finance director is full-time. And what's the third one?
The fourth one.
I mean, the
is
fourth one?
Danielle's position, which
Danielle's
is the
position.
coordinator, finance coordinator.
Financial coordinator.
Then you're saying that she is basically a part-time finance coordinator and part-time something else?
Danielle performs a number of different functions. She inputs all of the payables, works on the receivables. She currently is working on the grants for the airport, which occupies,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, a significant amount of her time as well.
Right.
So she wears multiple hats. The finance clerk position would be able to provide her assistance with those duties and responsibilities. The financial analyst will be looking at a number of different things within the organization. Whenever there's a situation where we need to have an analysis done of a particular department, something that they're working on or whatever, or if they need assistance in developing cost figures, this person will also be very heavily in assisting with the audits each year, as well as putting the budget together each year.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, I have a question here. I'm looking at, maybe I'm misunderstanding what you got here. You got the full-time analyst, the finance clerk budgeted for $52,200. But yet and still you got the full-time finance director, the finance director budgeted for $49,178. Are those reversed or?
You are correct. The amount for the analyst and the clerk are inverted.
Okay. I'm like, what is the, I want to be
Because
the one.
with the financial analyst, we are looking for a person with a 4-year degree.
Okay.
That's fine. So the clerk will be.
Now, obviously, we didn't, increase ad valorem. So, as I understand it, is the base a balanced budget, and then everything in the increment is above and beyond, or?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But your analysis is on point, yes.
Got it. So if we go through there and we say yes to every single incremental, we're obviously going to be not a balanced budget. We're going to have to dip into reserves.
Correct.
Got it. Just so everybody understands that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, so we're gonna.
Right.
Do you know about how much would be? We'll have to dip into it?
I will hopefully have that information for you next workshop.
Okay. After you get all the revenues.
All the revenues.
Got it.
Look at all the revenues, make sure that I'm comfortable with those estimates on those revenues, and then compare revenues against the costs. And I can tell you at that point whether your base budget is within those current revenues, or if you're going to need to, with the increment budget, how much it would require of fund balance to be able to go along with those revenues to
Okay.
be able to fund that.
So what are you estimating the salary if we did have a full-time finance director like yourself?
52,200.
Mm-hmm.
That's the total?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So So the 5938 is his part-time position and Danielle's?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
I used to be great in math. I'm not so good anymore. Understanding it. But did a good job explaining it to me, though.
All right, so now we're at overtime.
Overtime, you don't see any budgeted there because I don't anticipate any. The only position that would potentially qualify for overtime would be the finance clerk. The other positions should either be exempt positions or
So the finance clerk is a salary position?
no. Yes, finance clerk would be a salaried position.
So that's where you got the additional staff is down there for the overtime? Is that your, or is that adding to something else?
That is for your FICA.
No. I'm talking about the additional staff down under the overtime, sorry.
Right.
And that's-
It's still under the FICA because that 10,631 that you're looking at came from the FICA
Oh,
column.
okay. But it's still for the position I'm talking about. That would be for,
That's for, that 10,631 is for the new positions in the added increment. The existing under FICA is the, on the base, you got 4,544.
okay.
Then we've got the retirement contributions.
Retirement contributions are based on the positions that are there, whether it be existing staff or the additional staff that has been requested. It's pretty much self-explanatory there. You've got a specific rate for the retirements, and it doesn't matter whether they're in the investment plan or if they are in the pension plan. They have a blended rate for those, so it's same rate for either one. So
Yeah.
depending on what election they make when they're hired, it's still the same rate there.
Okay. Skipping down to CPA services. If we had those added positions, what outside services do we really need?
I anticipate that there will be a significant reduction in what is needed on outside services. Currently, the one position that comes in is actually doing a lot of work on payroll, whereas previously, when there were more staff members in the finance area, there was not, that input was not needed from an outside vendor. Currently, there is a significant amount of data entry that is done as well as review.
Mhm.
Previously, they were doing mostly just review.
So do you think most of that $50,000 would go away then?
Yes, I do.
Most.
And we're currently using, I know we have Wicks, Brown and Williams.
Wicks, Brown and Williams, correct.
And we have another, do we have another,
Well, we have an external auditor, Clifton Larson Allen,
Okay.
does that as well.
that's an auditor that we have,
That's required. yeah.
right.
But right now, John Ean with Wicks, Brown and Williams is there every other week doing payroll and stuff, and that's when we get the new system, the new software system, we can eliminate that expenditure right off the bat.
Right. So
Maybe
it's-
can you speak a little loud? I'm sorry. From here, it sounds like you all are being muffled.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, Wicks, Brown, and Williams provides our payroll entry for us.
Uh-huh.
And that would go away when we get the new software and get
Good.
these people involved. We wouldn't need that every other week. We wouldn't need them to show up and do a payroll for us.
So precisely what this budget now consists of, where we had, in previous administrations, we had outside people doing various positions versus hiring someone inside like it was before. So what you're doing, you're precisely bringing those positions back into the house and eliminating the outside agencies. Is that correct?
Yes.
Pretty much?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is
And-
that gonna be most cost effective, you think? I'm just asking, you know.
I think it would be efficient to do it that way, especially with the new software.
Okay, I agree with the new software.
Yeah.
So we will be inputting the stuff mostly from in-house.
Yep.
I'm assuming the idea is to get a higher level of service, more precise service.
Exactly. When you're paying for outside services, you want the highest and best use of those services. And there may still be a need for a review process, but a review process is a significantly less commitment
Than
of
input.
time and effort, as opposed to just reviewing to make sure that everything was done properly. you
So,
know.
Right.
so that leads to the question, will we still have a review process by an outside agency?
An auditor, yes.
And just an auditor? Oh,
Correct. The other thing is, the new payroll systems that are out there have pretty much all gone to doing payroll by exception. And if you understand what that means is, the majority of payroll is standard every payroll that rolls around.
mm-hmm,
You do have where people may take vacation time, they may take a sick day, something like that, and that's what an exception is. So the bulk of your employees, you would not even have to input any information
Right.
because it's done by default. The default numbers
Yeah.
are plugged in.
true.
The only ones you have to physically make a change to are those which are out of the ordinary, which greatly speeds up the payroll process.
And if you have a increase in pay, that will be automatically done by the payroll's input person, which would, and I know, I'm looking at from my agency. We have an outside agency that does our payroll. What I do is I report the hours, the leave hours and whatever, and then they put them in. But what I've ran into is that the problem is that if I give a pay increase, that pay increase usually don't take effect until 2 or 3 times down the road. So my question is, 2 or 3 pay periods down the road. So my question is, if a pay increase is input, our in-house people will be doing it?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can tell you where I work at now, part-time, that they've changed their payroll services software twice since I've been there. And the last software that they changed to, I got an increase in pay and it was on the following check. So obviously the new services are fantastic, so this will be a great opportunity for us. But
Well, the other thing that is beneficial with the new software is the software itself resides on a what's referred to as a cloud server, and which means that we do not have to buy a server to have here locally to be able to have software running on it. The other advantage of that is we're not responsible for maintaining the security of that data. That falls to the company that provides the software. And you're pretty much anymore, you don't buy software, you lease it. The benefit that you obtain from that is, say there is a storm and all the computers in the administration area over here, City Hall, are down or damaged. you can go to a computer anywhere, go to the internet, log in, and continue to work without any interruption of service or the payrolls, making sure that you're able to issue purchase orders, all of those things like that. So that's the beauty of the new softwares that are out there. Now, there are a number of different companies that provide that software, and that software would have to be evaluated. And again, you do have some initial setup costs, but beyond that, you're basically just paying a monthly or quarterly maintenance fee on that software, which means that also if they upgrade their software, you get the latest, greatest upgrade without having to buy software all over again. It's not unlike the leasing of the copy machines.
Mhm.
Copy machines improve in quality and capabilities so rapidly that you don't want to buy a copy machine anymore. You want to lease one, and then at the end of that lease, you start another lease, you get a brand new copy machine. So this, with the software, anytime there's an upgrade, you get the latest, greatest version of that software.
So I see 2 line items here for new softwares. First is under rentals and leases, new finance and accounting software for $42,000. That fee, how long does that cover? Is that for a 1 year or is that for multi-year? What is that?
That is for 1 year, and that amount certainly can be adjusted down because whenever you implement a software, you're not going to be able to implement it as of October 1 when the new budget goes into effect.
Right.
So it may take several months before it gets implemented. You're going to have more costs associated with data conversion and those types of operations that are going on. Now, the downside of any software conversion or the purchase of new software is that temporarily you have to run parallel systems to make sure that the new software is doing exactly what you want it to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that the numbers are coming out correctly. But once that validation is done, then you can pull the plug on the older version.
Got it. So we're going to be signing up to pay for that every single year. Got it. And we would be under the data conversion new software. Would we have to do both of those every year, or?
No. The data conversion is a one-time expenditure.
Got it. So we're just looking at $42,000 per year
Correct.
after this year. Got it.
Which line item are you on, Gary?
On
Page
page number 5, do you see the about halfway down $42,000?
Okay.
Even. That's the new finance and accounting software. And then a little bit down below that, you see $75,000.
Mhm.
That's the cost to convert everything over to the new software.
Gotcha.
And he's saying the 75 is a one-time cost, the 42 is a yearly.
Mm-hmm, okay.
Any questions or comments on the software?
No, or page 5.
Okay. Page 6.
Page 6 is the cost center where expenses are paid for the city attorney services. During the current year, there was a significant amount of expense due to the buyout of the previous city attorney, city attorney's contract. That's why you see the budget that is programmed in there for next year is slightly lower than what was expended so far for the current year and what was originally budgeted for the current year.
Okay.
So total city attorney, the attorney budget is $1,650. Is that what you're saying?
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000.
I mean 100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he worked for
100,650.
1,000.
No.
Okay.
Are there any questions on that?
See, nope.
Nope.
Page 7.
The facilities management is will be a new cost center going into next year. This was a request that came from the city manager and would allow, and it has already, it's just they're not in a separate cost center, has allowed for maintenance to begin on the buildings that the city owns. So that is what you see in this particular cost center.
Facility management is a new line item?
New cost center.
New cost center.
And it's
call
basically
center,
taking
okay.
existing employees, moving them into this cost center, and they would be supervised also by a employee that will be transferring in as well.
So a new department per se?
Basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's not try to get the same terminology so I can understand what you're talking about.
And David, I don't know whether you want to make any comments on that.
We are way behind on some of our maintenance that we need to do on our buildings. And my thought on this right now is to move Robert Trevino into a facility management type role where he handles all the buildings, the parks, and the streets, and then actually get somebody separate to do the sanitation and the solid waste to supervise that. It's just, we're spread too thin with the duties across the board with what we've got some of our managers doing, and it's just, things aren't getting done the way they should because there's too much to do. So I think if we develop this into a separate department and define the duties a little bit better, it would make the city more efficient in the long run.
This person also be responsible to make sure that our overall buildings are in good condition, such as roof and plumbing, electrical, and all that. Because
Whole
I
9
know-
yards. Mhm.
I know that's somewhat's been ignored in the past. So what type of training or qualifications does he have to fill that position?
Robert?
Yeah,
Robert's been in construction and electrical stuff all his career.
okay.
He's very familiar with buildings and building structure,
All right,
and that's kind of my background as well.
okay. And so the salary under the custodian, that's what we're paying our custodian to maintain City Hall and maybe this building?
All of our buildings.
All of our buildings for
And
one
he-
person or several?
One person has been doing it. We're going to have to relook at that as well.
I was gonna say,
This is the same person that comes out at 10 o'clock at night and locks the restrooms at Donaldson Park.
yeah, if that's one person, then I think he's underpaid, or we need another person, one or
He's
the other.
definitely overworked. We were looking at the maintenance schedule this week of how he's doing things, and it's just, we can do better. We just have to do better, and it's going to require a change in the way we're doing things.
What is
talk-
that? You're talking about the maintenance facility technician?
Yes.
Okay.
I could see that saving us some money with being able to do some of the repairs ourselves rather than hire outside companies.
Correct.
I'm assuming that's part of the point.
We're doing it now.
Any other questions on page number 7?
You say that the facility maintenance technician is the one that come out and lock the bathrooms and everything? I thought the custodian guy did
The
that.
custodian does that, but we're going to have to change that because I just found out this past week that Norris is doing that 7 days a week.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It has been.
And has been. So
Yeah.
I'm going to change that to 5 days a week, and the other facility maintenance tech is going to be trained on some of those duties as well that he does, to where we can eliminate that 7 day a week thing.
So he'll keep the same pay, but we'll cut back on his hours, okay. I know he does a fantastic job.
Yes, he does.
And he works extremely hard, too.
Mhm.
Okay, that's good, I like that.
And one other thing on this page, the facility maintenance technician, what do they do now?
Building maintenance.
That's for the new position that you're gonna
Mhm.
be creating, okay.
Page number 8.
I need to have time to look over this because I haven't done it.
So we got another hearing coming up, and we can even schedule another one if we have to.
Okay.
The next cost center on page 8 is the other government services. This is an existing cost center. You'll see under there previously I had talked about a study to determine the amount of services provided by general fund to the other funds of the city. That is the cost allocation study that you will see there. There is a figure attached to that. At first blush, it looks like a significant amount of money. I will tell you that that will pay for itself in the long run in costs recovered back to your general fund, as well as part of that study will determine what your overhead rates are that you can charge out to grants for administering various grants. And it is something that will stand up to the federal guidelines for A87 costs for administration
Okay.
or administering grants. So that is what that amount is. You also see an amount in there for the current budget software. Not budget software, accounting software. And then there's also an amount for actuarial services that are required as well. There are requirements under the Governmental Accounting Standards Boards that actuarial studies be done so that the information can be provided to the auditors so that they can make certain that the city is capable or not only capable but has funded things like other post-employment benefits, if you're familiar with that terminology. But that is one of the catchphrases that is utilized in governmental accounting a lot, and those are requirements that you assess those and that you report those as part of your annual audit.
Okay.
So that Superior accounting software, that's just to keep us going until if we do a changeover, correct?
That's correct.
And what, that 25,000 contractual service is the one you talked about that will help improve our other services?
That's the cost allocation study.
Okay. And what about the rental and leases, 20,600? I'm reading that correctly.
Okay. Under that is a couple of things there. One of them, which is not a significant amount of money, but is a copier for the council chambers here. And that was a request coming from city manager.
There have been times where we've needed to have something printed out here, so I
Mhm.
just thought it would be good to go ahead and get a copier or a printer here in this building.
Don't we have one over there now? The code enforcement people not over there?
Yeah.
I mean, they're there.
Yes,
They
yes.
don't have a copier?
They do, they do.
What has been in the past is that he's right. There's times that we did need things copied in here, and we had no access. We had to go over to the fire department. But I thought since the code enforcement people moved here, now we don't have access to that. If we needed the building, to make copies.
We can,
Yeah,
we can. I actually hadn't thought of that.
yeah. And that's what we're here for, to talk about ideas
Right.
and everything, because one person can't think of everything. And I think that was a good move to move the code enforcement over into this building.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
So other things that are in that rental and leases, what else do you have in that 20,000?
That's
And
your
that is-
software.
Oh,
that's
just- oh, I see.
software for the payroll.
Got it.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Anything else on page 8?
So so the 20,600 is not just for the rental, the copier, it's for software as well?
20,000 for software, 600 was for the copier.
600 was for the copy printer, but we just cut that out.
Okay, that can go back in, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Page number 9. Obviously, the goal here is to try to get through about half of it.
Yeah.
We've got another hour and 20 minutes to try to make it to roughly page 20.
I definitely like the security glass for payment window. I think that's a must. So I have no problem with that issue whatsoever. With that
Okay.
being said, can we take
It's actually 2 windows.
2 windows?
Mhm.
With that being said, can we take a 5-minute break?
Wait, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to hear on this end because there y'all
Yeah. Well,
like that.
Let's
We
go
can
ahead.
hear you very loud
I
on
know,
this
that's
end.
why I'm talking.
Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. Jim,
Okay.
Go ahead and do what you gotta do. If you got any other questions, go ahead and take care of it now.
Okay, no, I'm good.
Did you save any coffee back here?
There is plenty of coffee. I'll pause this.
I can hear you loud and clear right now.
I know, I'm trying to talk
You
now.
don't need a mic.
When I trying to hear.
Pause. We are back on.
All right, we're back in session now. We're looking at page number 9. We're looking at the safety and security glass payment window on page number 9.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm good with that page.
Well, me too.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no questions, page number 10. I see no incremental changes on page number 10,
Well,
Correct.
that's the police.
right?
And that position that was there, of course, is no longer with the city. So basically, you have the contract with the sheriff's department that's there, and you do have some charges for the accounting software that's being charged out there. We will review that, make sure that that is appropriate for it to still be charged out there. There may be something associated with reporting or report availability. I know Danielle, that's another one of the things that she does on any requests for information for police reports prior to the sheriff's department taking it over. She has to research those to see if there are any police reports for public records purposes.
Let
Okay.
me ask you one question on this. When we disbanded our police department, there were some files, I think the first time the sheriff department came up and talked to us, some files and some equipment and stuff that we were responsible for going through or doing something with, and there was going to be a fee to that, for us to do that. Could you update us on that a little bit?
Are you speaking of the evidence room?
Yes.
Okay. There was a total inventory. The total inventory was done in February and March that was certified by FDLE and the state attorney's office.
Mm-hmm.
And I provided y'all back then with a list of the things that they still had discrepancies on.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, the complete care and custody of all of that evidence is now under the Highlands County Sheriff's offices. We don't have a key to that anymore. We have no access to it since we don't have any police officers or any
Mhm.
evidence custodians. All of that is taken care of by the Sheriff's
So
office.
it's not going to
now.
cost us anything, because I remember that the last time we talked about it, someone
That
had
is
said it
part
was
of
going to
the-
cost us.
That's part of the
money.
services that they're providing to us.
Okay, good. So the 1.3 mil plus is just what we will be paying for our police services?
Correct.
Okay, good to go. I'm finished with that.
So anybody has any public records of anything that's over there, it would be through them and their cost.
It's through them from the time that they took it over, but prior to 2012, we still have a server with records on there that we get once or twice a month. We still get a public records request
A
for the
server's
police
over there,
in the city hall.
okay, that they're renting for $10 a year.
Yep, and Danielle actually went to the sheriff's office and got the training to be able to do the proper way for public records requests for police records.
Okay.
Because there is a certain amount of information that has to be redacted.
I got you, sure, of course.
Yeah.
And we're used to that on public television. Okay, I'm good on 10.
Page number 11.
Fire department.
Okay.
Fire department, see what my notes say here. The fire department, just as an overview here, the fire department budget includes a fire inspector that council has previously discussed as having an on-staff fire inspector as opposed to contracting those services out. That is programmed into the budget here. There is an offset that is scheduled for the existing contract for services that's being provided by a vendor at this point in time.
Where is that amount of what we're currently paying?
Okay, if you look under other contractual services, fire inspector contract is $45,000.
On page number.
Page
11.
number 11.
Page 11, about halfway down.
Yeah. So
Okay.
basically, we're
Okay.
paying 45,000.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For 1 day a week.
Yeah. So and then the new full-time fire inspector would cost us 48,000.
It would be at captain's rate, which is that, and the plus side of that would be that person would be available to respond to fires as well. He would have his gear with him and his vehicle at all times.
Right. So
And he
we
would-
get an actual firefighter. We get an inspector here 5 days a week instead of just one.
Correct.
Yeah.
They can handle all the event needs,
Now,
which
he
has always been a
wouldn't-
problem.
Yeah, he wouldn't be responding to medical calls like
Right.
they do, but he would be available for firefighting,
So that's
Awesome.
a position that's going to be open soon, available soon.
if y'all approve it.
Okay?
Right. Yeah, it'd be after the budget year of
Okay.
October
Correct.
1st. Yeah.
All right.
Well, actually, if we do this and start it October 1st and put him in that position, there's a training that he has to go through, number one, to get certified, but that would require some ride-alongs with the county fire inspector as well as the city of Sebring fire inspector. And we've already talked to them about that, and that is available. But he has to put in a certain amount of hours as basically as a ride-along with another certified inspector for a while. So in all likelihood, to meet all those requirements, it would probably be the first of the year before he's actually turned loose on his own to be doing this.
Got it.
So we're not talking about an existing firefighter, we're talking about somebody that you
new
have
position.
available for that position.
We have an existing firefighter that is already taking classes that is very interested in this position.
Okay, great. I like that part.
Mhm.
All
So
right.
which one, where's that new position at now?
About halfway down, other contractual services.
That's the one that we have now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
The
I'm
new
talking about-
position is
position
at
is
the
the
top of
fourth-
the page,
Fourth line down.
Oh.
fourth
Okay.
line down.
Oh, okay. I
New
see.
position, fire
Sorry.
inspector. Yeah.
Okay, the other thing that you see under the other contractual services is a reduction based on going to the in-house inspector. And the reason we don't have the negative amount or reduction amount at the full amount of the contract is that it'll take a while for that person to get up to speed and be able to do that, and for us to discontinue the services under the contract that we have with the current vendor.
Right.
Okay, we go back up to the top again about where it looks like you're increasing the wages and salaries. How do we get to that 116,000?
Well, there also is requested there 2 new firefighter positions.
Right?
In order to get us to the OSHA standard that we need to be at, we need 2 more full-time firefighters.
Will that also include some increases for some of the existing officers?
We haven't plugged that in yet. I got a letter yesterday from the union requesting that be looked at, and that's something that we'll either plug that in for next week, or we'll If we do that, if the council agrees with that, that's going to be about another $60,000 to $65,000 additional if y'all go along with what they want.
So we're working now on any changes to the union contract with the fire department?
As of yesterday, when they brought this to me,
So if that gets finalized, they'll have a brand-new contract for how many years?
it goes a year at a time.
A year at a time?
Mhm.
Okay.
So how many positions will we then have under the fire department?
Oh, gosh.
I know that we, what we considered to be a full fire department before was 16.
That
So
was- yeah, that
are we
was
looking
minimum.
at now 18? Or is it still 16?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't want to say something that's incorrect.
We'll see if you can
I
find
believe
out.
that's correct, and, because I worked with Andy on putting the budget together, and I believe that to be correct, 18 positions plus the chief.
So it's 19 total.
Yeah,
Does that include the fire inspector?
yes.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
So basically what it is you have 16 full-time firefighters, and then you also have an inspector and a chief. Got it.
So let me just ask a question. So the fire department total budget would be 1.8 million, whatever, not to include the 60,000 pay increase that you just spoke about. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Where did you get the 1.8?
Page 12
Down
Bottom
page
of page
12, I'm
12.
sorry.
at the bottom.
Didn't hear that.
Under the,
thank
on
you.
page 11, again, going backwards, unfortunately, but on page 11, under the line item listed as life and health insurance, we have, of course, the existing life insurance that is for every employee of the city that is paid. But the legislature passed new legislation that took effect on July the 1st, which addresses any firefighter that comes down with specific types of cancer.
Cancer, yep.
Is considered to be job-related.
Job-related.
Unfortunately, we have not received the information that we needed as to what the cost for the city would be to be able to provide that additional level of coverage. There is a provision for an initial payout of some $25,000 to help with initial medical bills. And later on, there is also another lump sum payout, I believe, of $75,000 related to this as well. That is not covered under workers' compensation. Looking at the cost of that for each employee, there is a company that has provided coverage to other cities and counties in the state of Florida for this life insurance, and is at a cost of $220 per firefighter. And what you see there under that is that amount rolled up for the total number of firefighters. So that's why that amount is programmed in there.
Okay. I see under fire assessment consulting, you have a $15,000 methodology assessment.
That information, or that was requested by the fire chief. He says in his discussions on this that one of the things that has not been updated in a number of years is the methodology itself, not the amount of the assessment on the properties, but the method that is utilized to do that.
How
Now, does
often-
that absolutely have to be done next year? No.
Right. How often are we supposed to? Because I know that we've done one in my time here,
That's right.
and you've probably had another one
Two since I've been here.
2 since, yeah.
Yeah.
So how often are we supposed to be doing that? Is there any regulation on that?
The recommendation that they make is every 5 years
Oh,
that you
I
take
see.
a look at that.
I
Oh,
see.
it's been longer than that.
It's been about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, because when we first started the fire assessment, we had it done, and then a few years later we had it done. Since you was here, we've had 2 done, and they didn't change it.
Yeah, it was significantly changed, yeah.
It was
It used to be
165.
strictly call-based, and then now,
Yeah, that's right, and it was talking.
now it's
yeah.
more like a square footage thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what other way could they do it? Could they measure it by? As far as you probably don't know that.
I
so-
don't know
No,
the
I don't
answer
know
to
either.
that. I do know that the recommendation that is coming forward is for that to be evaluated. I can tell you that at the completion of the development of the role for this year, that your staff will be trained on updating the role itself. So that will not be an expense that will have to be incurred from an outside firm. So I think that will be beneficial because that for this year is $7,500. So that's $7,500 that can be done in-house. They are not willing to sit down and provide classroom training on it, but with the information that we receive from them, which will be all of the data associated with the role, between the training that I have had in developing assessment roles, that should not be an ongoing issue, and I can train others in the finance department as well on how to update that role. There is even the possibility, I've asked to speak with the current tax collector's office, because their software that they have does have the provision for you to maintain the roles on their software. The county does that for all of the various assessment roles that they have, and they have a significant number. They have 20 plus different assessment roles that they maintain for special districts. One of them being garbage collection, and all the others would be mostly road districts. Some of them are lighting districts and all, but they utilize that software. But I do want to have that conversation with the tax collector himself and see if that's an option that's available. If that is an option that's available, that is preferable over having to maintain a separate Excel spreadsheet, but certainly it can be done on an Excel spreadsheet.
You know, before we, my thought is before we actually obligate the $15,000 for the fire assessment consultant review, I'm gonna call it a review. I would like to know the different, before we do that, I would like to know the different methods that they could use that's left, that they would be recommended that they would be using for the assessment. You understand what I'm saying? Like the first time we did it, it was square foot. This time it was something else, and next time it would be something else. So
Yeah, I think there's about 5 or 6 main ways they can do it, and then it's
Mhm.
just,
what's best fit for us?
right. But anyway,
Okay, just a thought.
That's not a bad idea.
Okay, and again, that is certainly one that doesn't absolutely have to be done next year. It could be done the following year
okay.
without any problem.
Mhm.
Anything else on page number 11? Page number 12?
Page number 12, there are a number of items that are included there under operating supplies. And that is the first break that you see in the account number strings on the left-hand side. Those are operating supplies that have been requested by the fire chief. One of the things that he expressed to me is that There have been a number of years since they have replaced a lot of the different items at the fire department. So there is outstanding a backlog of items that need to be replaced. You see among those, they want to add a section to where the gear is stored for each of the firefighters inside the building. This is something that would be necessary if the new or the additional firefighters are added. They will need a place to store their gear. There is a need for additional fire hose and their fire gear for fighting brush fires is in very poor condition, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And he says it's absolutely needs to be replaced. So
Okay.
that is a different
Better
type
than
of
we
gear
do.
than what their
Right.
standard firefighting gear is. Because if you understand brush fires, you've got to be much more mobile in fighting a brush fire than you do with fighting a structure fire.
Right.
Gotcha.
I see under buildings, you have roof replacement. Wasn't the roof just replaced?
Part of it was, the
Part
other
of it
parts, no.
was.
Okay.
Part of the roof was replaced?
It's two sections. One's, the garage bay is higher, it's a different roof section altogether.
Oh,
That needs to be done next.
okay.
They do have an issue with stucco on the side of the building that is in bad need of repair. The stucco has pulled away from the side of the building. So it absolutely needs to be replaced because you're going to continue to have water that gets in behind it and is going to basically make the problem much worse.
Right.
Okay.
So that's that request. The exhaust removal system is for I want to say it's one of the smaller trucks, but it's at the back of the fire station, and they need to be able to have the ability, like with their other trucks, if they start the truck up inside the building, that it removes that exhaust outside the building.
Okay. That makes sense.
And the other part of that is garage door openers. They do not have garage door openers on the back of the building, so they need to have those for whenever a call comes in and they need to take one of those vehicles out so they're not back there manually having to open that door.
Okay.
It makes sense when you stop and think
Yeah.
about it, because it would reduce their response time, so
Right.
they're able to get on scene quicker. There also is if I can find it, give me just a second.
Well, I do know one thing, over the last several years, we've annexed a lot of property as well as a lot of new homes, and I'm sure that our call numbers probably have increased 20, 25% or more. They could probably know a better figure than that, so it makes sense that the usage has increased, and the more use, the more you need to replace, and so only replacement I've ever heard of in the last 10 years is maybe some engine equipment. I never heard of any other basic supplies that they need to upgrade the system. So all this stuff makes personal sense to me that, as we grow and have other issues, we're going to have to make sure we maintain our department, because they also have a rating on the quality of our fire department, which also helps us with the lowering of our homeowners insurance. So
ISO ratings.
it benefits us tremendously to keep it updated at all times.
Okay. Page number 13.
Pretty good at moving us along there, Mayor, I have to say.
Oh, wait a minute, let me ask one question. And I know you don't know this, but the $1.8 million is what's needed to operate our fire department for next fiscal year, is that correct? Plus the 60,000.
Yes.
And we don't know how much of that is going to be fire assessment yet,
Right.
the revenue, right?
Right.
Okay, just clearing.
So if the fire assessment does go up, then that'll lower the amount of money we have to transfer from the general fund
Correct.
for that increase, okay? All right,
Okay.
Mayor, 13.
13.
On page 13, that is your code enforcement department. You basically are looking at there the addition of one additional code enforcement officer, as well as software to be able to track code violations. That software would provide a lot of capabilities for the officers in the field. It would be tied into the GIS system so that they could see the location that they're at and any code violations that have been issued to a particular piece of property. Those code violations would show up whenever they visit that piece of property. So they would know the history of that piece of property when they go out in the field.
I'm requesting an additional code enforcement officer primarily because of the need just to keep up with the load of work that we've got. And I heard most of the council early on in my coming on board here that was a priority of yours. I heard that, and we have been addressing this very aggressively, but there is still an awful lot of work that needs to be done. So I think an additional officer would be a great assistant to us.
But how are we doing as far as training on these new people?
They're-
Unfortunately, I hear a lot of complaints from a lot of citizens about written up warnings about certain things that in some ways don't make sense. I know I've heard one of the most common is people have been written up for having mold. And I know for a fact, like for my property, with all the trees I have, it's not really mold on like my sheds and that. It's basically just, I'll call
Pollen.
it, yeah, pollen, tree grime, whatever, which obviously, you can or cannot wash it off. But I don't know, it seems like sometimes some of these things seem to be a little bit ticky-tacky. And so I just want to make you aware of what people are talking about, that I think we need to go after the more serious issues. And maybe when we get caught up with that, we can cut back on some of the smaller items. Because I know we could probably have 20 code enforcement peoples and 5 more magistrates, and we'd probably find plenty of issues to keep them busy all this time. And as I see some larger issues, I may bring them to you personally. But I just want to make sure that they get their training and their qualifications so that they're more accurate, that's all.
The 3 full-timers that we have right now, including Marnita, are going next month to the training, to
Okay.
where hopefully they'll all come back as certified.
Well, in defense of the code enforcement officers, what I've been told is that if it's on their books and our code enforcements are normally generated by someone complaining, and I don't think the code enforcement officer is really out there attacking the mold or whatever. Someone has called in and complained about it. I think that's what's happening. And when the code
Some of it is
enforcement-
complaint-driven, some
Yeah.
of it is things that they see on their way
Yeah.
there, and just.
And what you're talking about, the mold, I got a call about that as well.
What,
And this-
what my vision for them to do on that is more of an education type thing instead of a disciplinary type thing.
Yeah.
A lot of homeowners don't even realize that it's there.
Exactly.
So my goal is to get them, bring it to their attention, put a card on the door, said, we notice this violation, see if you can take care of this in 10 days or whatever, and then follow up with us. Let us know that you took care of it, that kind
From
of
my
thing.
understanding,
Instead of
that's
just
what
writing
they're
them up.
doing. But the customer the doors that they're putting it on are the one that's saying, well, there's other things out there that's going on that you can become, so they're the ones that's
Yeah.
upset.
I hear that too.
So-
Yeah,
Yep, I hear that too.
I hear it every day,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I think that probably has to do with the fact of lack of code enforcement we had in the previous years. And now we're trying to really, like you say, tighten things up a lot, and so we're being a lot more stricter. But I think there is some ways like you said, we can just give minor warnings to basically instruct customers. I mean, it doesn't hurt for somebody to say, by the way, you got this here, yeah, okay, fine. 'Cause like most people I've talked to said they don't mind fixing the items, but for some reason, because they never got brought to their attention before, so they sort of feel like they're being signaled out all of a sudden. But I try to remind them that our code enforcement people are told if there's a code violation, that they're told to write it up, and let's take it from there. And so hopefully our magistrate, if they get to that point, he can calm people down and things will be settled easily in the future. But I do know I'm grateful that we have Marnita there because she did have the experience in code enforcement, so I'm sure that's a big help too.
She's done a great job for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on page number 14?
Yeah, I got one question on page number 14, the demolition repairs and repairs. Are we, is that for the $20,000? Is that, how many structures can be demolished for that amount of money, approximately?
Not many.
4 or 5.
4 or 5?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Does this include, obviously this wouldn't include the building that's on Main Street? The brick building?
No,
Right.
no.
What is the situation with that?
We're in a lawsuit with that one right now.
We are,
Mhm.
again.
Again?
Who's suing
Again.
whom? Are we suing them, or they still
They're
suing us?
suing us.
Oh, again?
Yeah.
When was that filed?
Last week, 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay,
The
now
lady,
these-
the lady with the funny last name, Edmund Egab something, I can't
Yeah.
remember what.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any kind of ETA on that of when we'll actually be able to
Probably
do
not.
something with
No.
it? No.
There was actually a hearing that was set up for later on in August, and we just got an email last night that that's been postponed again because she doesn't have all her information in yet.
Great.
This goes back to something that happened 7 or 8 years
A
ago.
long time
Right.
ago, yeah.
Sooner or later, there has to be a statute of limitations, right?
I would think.
Yeah, okay.
Just
And-
keep,
and-
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
What about the building on Delaney Avenue? Is it Delaney? No, Hal McRae.
Packard,
Yes.
I got some good news on that one.
Woo!
And
I didn't hear that.
We have to file some paperwork on that one just to make sure that we're on the right thing.
Okay, all right.
But basically, there's a statute that allows us to go inside there without permission if we can prove certain things. So
Okay.
that's what we're working on right now.
Okay, thank you.
322 East Hal McRae Boulevard,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I don't know the address, but I know
That's
which one.
322, yeah.
Anything else on page number 14?
Nope.
Seeing none. Page number 15.
Page number 15 accounts for the services that are provided in planning and zoning. Those are contractual services. It's my understanding that the Central Florida Regional Planning Council provides part of those services. And is it the county zoning department that provides the other? Is that right?
We do all of our own planning and
We
zoning.
do
They
it.
do the actual permitting.
Permitting.
I'm assuming we pay them for that,
Yes.
and that's what that covers. Got it.
So it's all stayed the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There's nothing else on 15. We'll go to 16.
Oh, boy.
Street Department.
Hmm.
Let me see what my notes on there. This is the department that there will be a supervisor transfer from the Public Works to oversee the Streets Department, facilities, maintenance, and the Parks Recreation area. And that's what this cost center will account for. for that position, as well as any improvements that need to be done to the streets. You'll notice also that covered under this are your maintenance of your street, of your traffic signals, as well as traffic and light repairs.
So we're gonna be hiring some new people. That's what all these costs are, right?
For this cost center, this
Yeah.
is actually where you have the positions on staff at this point. It's just a matter of moving them from one location to the other.
So
That's where David talked about Robert being,
Yeah.
coming over to supervise this department and the other ones that I
So
mentioned.
some are coming over, then we're gonna have to fill those positions with somebody else.
Right, the position that he currently has with the Public Works area will be filled by someone else, so. So
Rick,
is there another position? Yes, but it will be in the Public Works area where it'll be filled. His position will just be coming over here.
So Rick, let me ask you a question. Under the second line item on page number 16, where it says salary, regular salaries and wages for $101,030, how many position, how many positions is this covers?
Okay, if you'll give me just a moment, I can give you that answer.
Okay.
I knew this computer was going to come in handy today. So this is cost center 501. That is for 3 positions.
Okay.
Does anybody have any opinion on mosquito control?
I heard them last night coming by.
I've seen them come by. I just don't know if they do any good or not. Just,
I don't know.
It looks
I don't
good,
know
sounds
either.
good.
I know we
but
didn't.
I don't see much coming out of there.
We didn't do it for 1 year, and a lot of people complained.
Yep.
So we do it now.
We're doing it now, and as long as you hear it, everybody's happy, right? I guess.
There's always going to be mosquitoes. There's nothing you can do about it. But I mean, studies show that it does kill a lot.
Okay.
It does kill a lot, but as I have had it explained to me, you could kill every mosquito in Highlands County. And if you have a strong wind that comes in from the west coast, you'll have a whole new crop of them.
Right.
Okay. I'm finished with that page.
Anything else on page number 16?
Mm-mm.
Seeing none, page number 17. This is the summary of everything in the
Mhm.
streets department.
Yep.
You have any comments on the summary there?
No.
The amount that's programmed in there for street construction seems to be consistent year to year. And that depends on what road segments are identified by council that need to be resurfaced, or worst case scenario, need to be reconstructed.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they would be resurfaced before they get to a point where any reconstruction needs to be done on a roadway. One of the telltale signs that you need reconstruction on a road is if you see what's referred to as alligator cracking on the surface of the road. From my understanding, whether it's a longitudinal or a latitudinal crack in the roadway, that's not something to worry about. But if it looks like the back of an alligator with different little piece cracks running in all different directions, it creates like a spider web effect.
Mm-hmm.
That is indicative of base failure on the road. and you have to go in and reconstruct the base of the road to be able to correct that problem. But I don't know that I'm aware that we have any of those situations in the city at this point.
So if the council has any roads that they would like to have repaired, this month is the time to bring them to you so they can be plugged in and we can hopefully vote on that next month.
It seems like there's a lot of actuals are actually spent a lot less than the budget, so we don't have much time left, but we should have some money to carry over that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, page number 18.
Thought we were on that one. What, we on that one?
No, we were on 17. We were on the summary still.
Oh,
Now we're on page number 18, which is the parks.
Parks, this cost center, there were no additional staff positions requested for this. There was, in working with Ron on this budget, he indicated that there were a number of reductions that could be made based on historical expenses. So you'll see some of those in the column for increment there, some reductions that are there. There is, however, an increase in contractual services. I do not have the specifics on that in my notes, and I apologize for that. I tried to make sure I had specifics on that, but all the different increment increases, but for some reason I don't have my notes on, or any notes on that.
You know how many employees are in that department?
That may be something, let me look at one other thing.
While you're doing that, I noticed that a lot of these increments are being lowered. Is that because we got a better idea of what we need, or we had excess money that we don't need it again? I mean,
I think the answer to that is that we have a better feel for what the costs are associated with that department.
okay, all right.
David, have you gotten a request from any of the baseball leagues about maintenance to the fields?
Yes,
Okay. Is that plugged in here?
not yet.
Okay. Do you think it will be at the next one, or what's your plan for that?
Well, I'm not sure. Ricky, were you able to put those scoreboards in there?
I don't know that I've seen that information yet.
Okay.
I don't know what they were requesting. I
No,
just
wait a
heard.
minute, I do have a note here from you that says scoreboards for Dura Martin, and
Yeah.
that was $10,500.
I just see that the ballpark maintenance at the bottom of page 18 was originally budgeted for $63,500, and actuals at this point is right at $24,000. So,
All right.
I'm curious if some of that money could be used for some of those upgrades they were looking for.
Sure it could,
Okay.
absolutely.
I can tell you, I thought I had that amount of $10,500 included in here, but I do not see it at this point, but I'll make that adjustment.
Okay.
So this
Um,
increase on the sprinklers, is that going to put us back to 100% of working order on everything, pumps, timers?
I am not sure where that's actually for sprinklers, but I don't think, it's certainly not for the ballparks. Certainly not. I mean, Durham Martin alone is gonna cost over $100,000 just to replace the irrigation system on that, and that has been recommended.
David, wouldn't that be for, when they have those events out there, sometimes I know they're not allowed out there, but sometimes they do over there and then they drive over the sprinkler heads and they have to be replaced or maintenance or something like that?
This doesn't cover just the ball fields either. This is all the parks.
Oh.
So, yeah, this would be, Donaldson Park, Tulane, you name it.
Yeah, I don't think that's enough there.
But we
If
haven't
we're-
spent anything as of yet. The actuals?
Well, anything that got labeled specifically for that, who knows?
If you're doing a complete replacement of the irrigation system at that ballpark, that is something that would qualify under infrastructure if needed.
Yes,
But I thought this was just for maintenance
It is.
it is.
All right, anything else on page number 18?
So if we had an extra employee, maybe some of that work would have gotten done with the money that was available.
I'm sorry?
I said with the extra money that wasn't really spent, if we had one extra employee, the money could have been spent on some of this maintenance being taken
Yes.
care of already.
Yes, definitely.
Are we gonna look into that? Okay,
Page number 19.
thank you.
I apologize, I had to make a note there. If I don't make notes,
No problem.
by the time I walk out of this room, I will have forgotten.
Page 19.
Page 19 is a continuation of expenses related to a number of the different ball fields, including operating supplies and janitorial supplies.
Any questions on 19?
No.
Page number 20.
Page number 20, this is where some monies had been programmed into previous budgets for donation to not-for-profit organizations. I put an amount in there. I don't know whether that's the desire of the council to continue those, but as you can see, during the current year, that amount is down significantly.
Right. Does the amount that we donate in the form of rent to the Heartland Cultural Alliance, does that not qualify under this? I know that we're donating to them, use of the building, power, all of that.
It doesn't show up as an expense, no.
Got it. Okay. Any questions or comments on that?
I do have one I just thought about on Donaldson Park with the building next to it, the shuffleboard.
Senior Activity Center?
There you go. Do we have any plans? I thought at one time we heard that it needs some upgrading, maybe new air conditioning or whatever. Are there any issues out there that we are aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, that's good news.
Okay. Page number 21.
Recreation.
This is the Recreation Cost Center. The expenses related to salaries that were allocated out to this cost center, again, based on my initial explanation before we got into discussing the budget items. That's why you see those amounts are zeroed out. Again, you see the Superion Navaline in there. There is, again, costs associated with the finance and accounting system is allocated out to this cost center. You have the electricity for a number of different locations that's paid out of this, as well as the water charges, insurance, some building repairs. And the reason that you see in the current year a significant amount there, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Flowers, but I believe that's associated with the recreation building at the Memorial Field, the repairs that had to be made there.
That is correct.
Okay.
And most of that is reimbursable by insurance.
What were the
So-
nature of those repairs?
That's the floor that got damaged.
Oh.
You
Yeah.
talking about the Martin Luther King complex?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Boys and
What-
Girls
what-
Club building?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
What-
floor was damaged, and
Yeah.
we're not finished with it yet. We're still working with the insurance company on that. And they came up this far, about 1.5 feet on the drywall, where it got damaged and
Yeah.
all that, all the way around that.
Wasn't there a problem with the air conditioner out there as well? Oh,
I don't think so.
I remember during the hurricane.
That was back in the hurricane, yes.
Did we get that repaired or fixed or?
I would hope so. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, and I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm not aware of an air conditioner issue there, so.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a problem, they should be complaining about that regularly,
Yeah.
because
It must
that's
have
something
been-
you'd feel.
It must have been fixed right after that. Have we,
Okay.
have we decided on the new flooring yet? We're still looking into those options?
Dave Cornuette decided on what he would prefer with, which is, it's certainly not the wood, it's significantly less in
Like
price.
a rubber product or whatever?
It's kind of like that. It's like a rubberized coating on the floor.
So we decided to go with that?
Mhm.
Okay, I didn't have any problem with that. That's low maintenance there.
Okay. Anything else on page number 21?
Nope.
Page number 22, Community Center.
This is reflective of the costs associated with the community center, and it's based on the historical expenses.
I see we must be using it a lot less this year, as the electricity is only $3,100 so far this year, where it was $9,000 before.
That would have probably been during an election year, I'm guessing, where they were doing,
Probably during the repair time, whenever we were repairing this, and we were having to use that for
That's
council
right.
meetings and all.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You know, one of the questions I had on a community center was, when we lost electricity there, you know, we had the museum upstairs that has all that artwork, or some artwork we'll call it. And that's something that we need to consider once again about having a way to take one of our portable generators to be able to hook into that. Because I actually talked to Galen Thomas about that. I guess there's 2 units that serve upstairs, and she said that they had some issues with the hurricane, that if they had enough electricity to at least run one of them, which would help keep the humidity and moisture out, that would help preserve there. That's something we need to seriously look at in the very near future, of having a transfer switch. Maybe Kenny Long can give us a quick look at, because I think that would be a minor cost, that we could plug it in and have that community center not only available for hurricane issues, but also to preserve the museum. So if you could maybe put that on your thing to ask Kenny to go take a look at that. I think that's a would be.
aren't the portable generators we have 3-phase?
Yeah, we got 3, right?
But they're all 3-phase, aren't they?
Not sure.
I think that's what those pumps use. Anyway, if they're 3-phase, then you're running them single-phase, and you lose a third of your wattage or whatever. There's a way to do it, but it's just more complicated.
Hopefully we wouldn't need to use all the wattage.
No. The 3-phase power versus single-phase power. Like, they're for industrial power, for running pumps. That's what they're
I got you.
used for. Versus home, which is single-phase.
So we can just get one of our portable generators that we have at home, plug it in.
Maybe.
You probably got a couple of them.
I got a couple. Probably not gonna do it though. They run a ceiling fan, that's about it.
I hope mine runs my portable air conditioner, but thanks.
Anything else on page number 22?
Or 23.
Anything on page number 23?
23 is the beginning of the infrastructure fund, which would include your CIP plan, and we do not have all the information input in here yet for that. That would include all of your cost centers associated with Fund 110, and that would carry you through to
I have a question on page 23. And right here it says the senior center project.
Mm-hmm.
But what is that?
That would have
18,
been,
19, we spent, we put in 16,000. What is that? What is that? What was that for? You anybody remember? I don't remember.
I believe it was repairs to, I believe, air conditioning and some type of roofing.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking too, that we did clean that building up.
Yeah, I think it was in the back of the
Okay.
building, and then
Yeah.
there was, I believe we tinted it as well.
Okay,
There was termite damage, I want to say.
okay.
That was one of the reasons why they didn't want to use it for the election last
Yeah.
time,
Gotcha.
because those repairs needed to be done.
So we could use it this time then.
Maybe.
What about the city hall refurbishment? My understanding is that we could use that money on existing structure exterior.
We have to replace some windows still at City Hall. That we've got some window rot upstairs. And we've got a bid on it that, I'm not sure what that number is right now, but that was under that, I think. Am I correct in that, Ricky?
But you haven't
I
budgeted
think
it.
so.
It's
I
not
think
in
that's
this one.
correct.
Yeah, we would need to add that back in probably.
You wouldn't anticipate it being $100,000 worth of windows, would you? Please tell me no.
They told me the figure and it wasn't 100,000, but I don't remember what it was.
Well, if it's anywhere close to that, get another one.
There's 22 windows, I think, that needed to be replaced.
Yeah,
Or even $500 a window.
right.
You're talking a little over 10 grand.
Well, those
It's
are
a
not.
lot more than that.
Those are not your normal windows. They're
Yeah.
like,
Bulletproof?
no, they're not. You know,
They have to look like the historic
right.
buildings.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, then we're double that then. Okay.
Yeah,
So you need to add in some estimates for that, right?
Yes.
right.
We're trying-
There's got to be a list of what the intention of that money was supposed to be used for,
I would think
of the
so.
repairs.
Yeah.
You know, because I know it was something that was approved by council. I know we talked about it, and the only thing that I remember out of that was the windows, because that was the main part of it.
Some exterior damage to the surface structure too, I
Yeah.
thought.
But if there is nothing else, then that money, could go towards that generator, or
That was funded.
huh?
Yeah.
That was funded.
Was it?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, anyway,
Go with Generator Community Center.
Should be here any day.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Oh, great.
anything else on 23?
Again, all of these cost centers associated with Fund 110 are going to have additional information in them from your CIP plan. If you want to
Okay.
just move down to, pass that down to the next cost center, and that would be for Fund 120, and that's on page 27. And next week, we will come back to these cost centers when we have the information on the
Okay.
capital improvement plan.
That's with which one, starting at what page we're gonna come back to? Page 20,
I believe it was 23 through
Yeah.
26.
okay.
This cost center is Community Development Fund. We currently have an ongoing grant there, CDBG grant. I am not as familiar with CDBG grants as I probably should be. I don't know whether this is something that you can apply for and receive every year,
Yep.
or if you have to
Isn't
sit
it?
out a year
Every other year, I think.
in between. So I
That's
initially had-
Maria's main thing there. That's something she always handled, so.
I can follow up on that and find out for sure.
They're showing one in 16, 17, but not in 18, and in 17, 18.
Well, I believe that's because they didn't apply for it.
Think that's what it is?
Yeah, I know that's what it is.
I thought it was an every other year thing, but,
I
That,
thought so too.
we can follow up on
Can't
that.
have follow up on it, because I thought, I know we can apply, at Heartland Coalition for the Homeless, we can apply for a CDBG grant every year. We have to wait out a couple of years. I
Yeah,
don't know if
but
that's
you're
in the
not-
city.
applying as a municipality, you're applying as an end user of that grant, are you not?
No, we're applying just like the city applies.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mhm.
Currently, it is contained in the budget. If we find out differently, then it certainly can be taken out.
Got it.
Okay.
Under that, the police thing for 30,000, is that so-called vehicle money we supply every year?
Yes.
Where are you at?
Where are Craig Jones?
Page 24.
Oh, yeah, we skipped over
We
all
skipped
of
those,
that.
I know,
Jim.
but I see that and it just.
I saw that too.
It irritates me that we have 2 officers and we gotta give enough money to buy a new vehicle every year. I just don't see it.
That's part of your agreement with the sheriff's
Well,
department.
I didn't sign that agreement. Or the $10 rental fee. Think I can do, no comment.
Page number 28?
Page number 28 is the Main Street CRA. What
Oh,
you
boy.
have programmed in there is based on historical amounts budgeted for that. Again, I will verify the revenues, make sure that we are within the parameters associated with that. And also be prepared to provide that information to the CRA for their the CRA board for their consideration.
Okay.
So this will go over again at our next meeting, correct?
Yep.
I'm sure this is something hopefully Maria would want to be available for.
Yep.
Same
Page number-
thing is for the South Side CRA district, that's on page 29.
Okay.
And also the airport CRA district, which is on page 30.
Okay. Do you have anything on any of that?
At the moment.
31?
My pages are sticking together. Page 31, that's the Water Utility Billing Services Cost Center. That's where they bill the utility services and also collect the payments for the utilities. And what you have programmed in there are the costs associated with that. There were some reductions that were recommended on that particular cost center, and if you look at the history of that, especially if you're looking at other contractual services, even though that's showing a significant reduction there, if you look at what has been expended in prior years, I think that is consistent, that it should be actually reduced. Same thing with your transportation postage account. Rentals and leases, there was a need for additional funding there. Building repairs and maintenance. The amount budgeted for the current year and what that was expended for that does not make sense, because was only $57 expended, but yet there was $12,000 budgeted. I don't know whether there was a specific reason for that.
Was that security glass something that was used previously? That was put on the budget previously?
Could have been.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
What you asked about, Gary?
There was $12,000 for the building's repair and maintenance. However, we only spent $57,
I see.
and the cost of the glass was $8,500.
I don't know if it's ever been considered before.
Oh, okay.
Or could we get that done out of this budget before the end of the budget year?
In the current budget,
Yeah,
with that 12,000 you're talking about,
yeah.
Mhm.
I guess we could.
I'm sure if somebody's wants 8,000 plus for that, they'd probably jump right on it.
We could get written quotes on it and move forward on it.
Okay. Anything else on 31?
No. My eyes are getting weary.
Mine too.
Seen a bunch of numbers going round and round.
All right, we'll make,
You have a little bit more than 15 minutes left on the recording.
Okay.
Up to you.
let's try to do 32 and 33.
Okay?
All right.
Okay, the 32 and 33, those pages deal with your sewer disposal plant. Looking at that and in talking with Ron on those, he did have some areas that he felt like could be reduced, and you see that in the column for the increment. You'll see those reductions there, but you'll also see some increases in some other areas where he felt like he needed some additional funding for next year.
What would the 30,000 be for professional services? Do you
Yeah,
know?
me too.
The increase?
I don't have the specific information on that, and I apologize for that. Maybe Ron could be here for the next workshop.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm somewhat concerned about some of our water and sewer pipes. I mean, we've had a few problems in the last couple of years that were costly, and I really don't know what the condition is, but I have a feeling that it's something we need to be active for keeping up to date on whether they need to be repaired or increased or replaced.
We have an awful lot of catch-up to do, especially at some of our lift stations. For whatever reason, probably to save money, some of the parts were replaced, pump parts and stuff last year with Chinese made stuff,
Yeah.
and they lasted a year.
Well, that's
So,
what I'm saying. You have a
yeah.
lot of these budgets where they're decreased considerably. I mean, just replacement and maintenance, one is 40,000, and then, of course, you're adding other repairs and maintenance, maybe that offsets that 40,000.
I have a question, and I don't know if this is the right area to ask it in. At one time, we were talking about doing something with fire hydrogen things, you know, those where you plug up, you know what I'm talking about, those fire hydrogen, they're supposed to have been replaced?
Oh, fire hydrants?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hydrants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
Where is that located at in this budget? Is that fire department or
No, it would be underwater,
water and sewer?
yeah.
So is that,
I'm not sure where that is right now. I
Well-
haven't seen all the requests.
There was X amount of them that was identified by the fire department, because they do the testing on it.
okay?
And they were identified as being deficient or needed to be repaired.
Exactly, I remember that.
To my knowledge, they all got repaired.
They all dig, that's what I was asking.
And I believe, I actually talked to Andy about that several months ago, just in passing, and I'm almost positive, he told me that they had been repaired.
Okay.
But
Good.
double check with him.
Good.
You were asking about lift stations. If you look on page 33, there's a line item for lift station project. You can see where there's money allocated in there or requested in there, and even an additional amount for next year. Instead of $100,000, $130,000 for lift station. So,
I see at this point, we've only spent $20,000 this year. Do we intend on spending all of that remaining $80,000 in repairs?
I don't see how he can accomplish that in the
Okay.
amount of time that we've got left. There is also the next line item that's there, the wastewater treatment plant effluent pond. There is a significant project that needs to be undertaken with that, and he has requested an amount of $850,000 for that.
Are these with the new ponds or?
I believe that is correct.
I'm kind of curious.
I would think it would have to be new. I was wondering what the location would be.
Well, I'm just curious why, what the project is. I mean, I thought that we just spent, a couple $1 million getting all that done. So, kind of curious.
He is also requesting some in the CIP plan as well
Okay.
to address some of the issues out there. Without going into a lot of details, there's some significant maintenance issues that need to be addressed
Right.
at the sewage treatment plant out there.
Right. Okay.
The septage process facility, he has requested an amount of money there for some equipment to go in. And I wish I could tell you the difference between the sewer treatment ponds and the septage, but that's going beyond my level of expertise.
Okay. Well, perhaps, David, in the interim time between now and next meeting, you could have a conversation with Ronnie, and if he can't be here, then he could at least address all these issues and give us an explanation.
Agreed.
Okay.
There's a significant amount of machinery and equipment that he is requesting as well. One of them is certainly something is needed to transport equipment from one location to another. That's the tandem axle dual wheel trailer. He's asking for a tractor and batwing mower to be used at the facility out there. With the amount of acreage that he has to mow out there, it makes sense to have the larger capability of mowing rather than just the small mowing machines. He's asking for a utility truck with a crane on it, and that's to be able to service the lift stations on the north extension that's being put in. He's also asking for a utility truck for line maintenance, and the line maintenance would include both your water and your sewer lines.
I noticed that overall, the actual for the 18-19 budget was about $1 million that hadn't been used, so that'll help compensating the increase by $1 million, almost $2 million
Well,
for the upcoming budget.
the other thing is, if you're looking at the fiscal year 18-19 actuals, that data was pulled at the end of May. So those expenses for the current year will be slightly higher than what you see there.
All right.
And that is part of the data that I had to run paper reports on and input into the spreadsheet manually.
Okay.
It would be nice to be able to just do that, drop down an Excel file, have the formulas in place where it would just automatically go out and grab that data and instantly update it. Very easy to do it, but when you can't download the data in an Excel format, it severely decreases what you can and cannot accomplish.
Okay. All right, well, I think we should call that a meeting.
I do too.
We've reached our time limit. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Thanks to staff for going over this with us.
Got 6 minutes left on the recorder.
Well, I'm done.
I'm done
It's
too.
11 o'clock.
I would like to express my appreciation in council sitting through all of this, because the numbers sometimes can start to run together. But I think it's very important that you have an understanding of what is contained in the budget. And I want you to also know that if there's ever a time that you need an explanation for something that is included in the budget, whether it's the proposed budget, adopted budget, or whatever, I'm more than willing to be able to sit down with you and go over that.
Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you.
Same back at you. You're very thorough, and you've got a good pace for all of us to understand, so we appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
And I think with that, if there's no opposition, we will adjourn this meeting.
Meeting adjourned,
Okay.
All right.
or workshop, or whichever.